Hello, one and all, and welcome back to the Hidden Realms channel. I am your very happy resident GM, Joshua MacGregor, and we're here with the Roll Insight Show, the show where we talk about the last week's episodes of the Mockeries and the Reserve List, and what went on behind the scenes in making them, what happened during the show that's interesting, and get little tidbits about where the series is headed. So as always, we begin with our little gimmick, which is that we roll a d20 for your insight check. How much insight are you going to get? Guys, this is the highest potentially that we've ever gotten on this show. A 17 has been rolled on the insight die. So you guys are going to get some juicy morsels this time around. That's not literally how the show. I don't actually hold back on anything that I'm going to share with you, but it's always fun to do a little gimmicky roll. Okay, so let's talk a little about the Mockeries episode 9. The Mockeries episode 9 is called The Invitation because, as it has been teased for quite a while in the show, not quite a while, but many weeks for in terms of episode count, there's this destiny that Cloud is involved with that involves an invitation. Her people were invited, says the voice that comes out of the divination wizard, Madame Mad. And finally, we get to see the person who's actually behind this stuff. Brenial Amakir is a character that if you are a diehard fan of the show, of the channel, rather, you will recognize from the God Heist as being a character. Here's your first bit of insight, is a character from Vulpikar, from the world that the people from God Heist went to from Saigalia, which is the world that this story takes place in. So already we're seeing other connecting elements from God Heist, which is very cool and wasn't something originally that I had planned to do at all for the Race to the Battle of the Bands stuff, and certainly not for the Reserve List. But because we were doing some very cool sort of Destiny-related stuff, Brenial Amakir very quickly became something that I was very interested in bringing back because he has very ill-defined abilities from the God Heist. He was just shown to be quite competent, but and on the side of the heroes. But then, of course, there was that stuff going on. I don't want to say too much because I'm going to spoil things for for my players who watch these episodes in the Mockeries. But he was involved in the passing of Thano, the Stupid, and got a post-credit scene in the God Heist, where it was shown that he had made it to Saigalia. So now we get to see a little bit about what he's been up to in the interim, the 4-year interim between those time periods, between the God Heist and Race to the Battle of the Bands. And we get an idea for what he wants. With his bad Russian accent, what he wishes for is for the scythe, the mask of stone, the whimsy of nightfall, and the private fears of trees to join together and to potentially do some stuff with that stuff. So it is he who has been keeping Cloud's tribe shrouded, as it were, from Madame Mad. And he fully shows up, and he's there, and he talks to Cloud and invites her to this Needlepoint Island. So I really don't want to spoil things for this particular storyline. Everything is connected. Everything is going to work out, and all of the lore dumping of the celestial host, Numina and Hamir, Esmeran gods, stuff from the dungeon, while not entirely important to remember all of it, is definitely relevant and will be brought up again. So that's what I'm going to say about that. And then, of course, we get to meet Moon, the Moonlight Scythe, the Form Splitter, otherwise known as Sliver or Slither. incredibly powerful magical artifact who has a far more comedic relationship with the party uh, already than I could have hoped. Absolutely wonderful. Very excited indeed for you guys to continue to see what happens in regards to this scythe. But it's a moon. I'm gonna call it moon, but it's the Moonlight Scythe is a very important NPC to this story for more reasons than one. Artifacts like this are incredibly powerful and rare, and if you look at some of the artifacts that are in Dungeons and Dragons, or in the Dungeon Master's Guide, are in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, you will see that artifacts and like especially powerful legendary magic items have this sort of world-changing dynamic to them, and I wanted to make something that was deeply tied to all of the different storylines that was going on while still being its own storyline in and of itself. So it's connected to the Malar storylines of Thesia. It's connected to the Nine Hells storylines of Theremin. Everything's connected. It's all going in a direction. And then, of course, they are able to beat back Zhen, the leader of the werewolves, which again we don't really have a huge amount of information on, but the important thing about that reveal was just to hammer home this idea that Zhen is the champion of Malar. They have powers directly given to them from the hunter god. That's just a fact of life. So while Matt Shesha and Thesia and the other Yuan Ti may in fact claim the position of champion of Malar if they were to figure out a way to kill Zhen. They are in fact fighting a civil war, essentially, within their own faction. Yeah, and then Humphrey Blaine, of course, going into the dungeon to see whether the Silver Scythe is still in there or not. Good old Humphrey. Fantastic. This might be quite a quick episode of Roll Insight. Let's talk about episode 9 of the Reserve List, which is entitled The Word Around Town. Now, when you're developing whodunits and mysteries, there's always going to be a factor of interviewing suspects and trying to gather evidence and what have you. And I was more than happy to let these guys take their time and do that. This episode is actually not the only one where they talk to people. Next episode is largely social interaction as well. But next week has got a little bit of a different thing going on with it. This week, they interviewed all kinds of people. They interviewed the sister. They got the plan to go and talk to the mother, Annie and Mary Brown, respectively. I wanted to make a very plain, ordinary names group family for my players, because some of the more esoteric fantasy names don't always lodge in the brain. So there was Adelaide Brown. And actually, here's a fun little bit of insight. Tonight we're actually going to start working on a new project, and there's a different Adelaide character in that. So that's a little fun thing that I've been working on, and I realized only recently. I went, this dead character in Croshier is named the same thing as an upcoming character in a different show that will be airing on this channel. Yes, so they learn about Annie, which was very fun to role play. I would love to role play a little bit more about Annie as well. Just lighting up in the sheriff's office. And we, of course, this is the episode where we get to hear the beautiful voice of Ito for the first time. Ito, one of those spur of the moment things that I wish I could say that I had planned for ages, but I, of course, didn't. But nevertheless, doing a ratatouille and pulling a French accent for my little mouse friend was a very, very fun little thing that I was very happy to do, and everybody was pretty delighted player wise when that came up. So I was more than pleased with the way that turned out. And it was a way of dropping a few more crumbs in front of the players as well. That was it. That was that was the reserve list episode 9. Boop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doo. Oh, of course they talked to Helen as well. Yeah, in retrospect, Helen should have been a lot more just nah, but I didn't want them to have gone and done this whole thing for nothing. Because our sessions are not very long and our episodes are not very long. So it is important to me that every path that they followed led them closer to the truth, irregardless of how well they handled the situation. Failure in a social interaction doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get the information that you want. It just means that the people don't like you very much and won't talk to you anymore. So that was the conversation with Helen. I'm working my way backwards just because I'm remembering things in reverse order for some reason tonight. We're also suspicion just continues for Edgar Galanis, Gwen's father, who's become involved in this investigation. Behind the scenes, working with Alberta on some of her background stuff. I've talked about this before. I've talked about the when players come to you with backstory stuff and how much fun that is to integrate into the game for me. That's one of my all-time favorite things to do. Later down the line with the reserve list, we get some more background information, backstory stuff on more of the characters, but it is done more in we're developing this during the game rather than outside of the game manner, and that's completely fine, I think, for newer players especially, as a way of starting to think about developing background stuff for the characters that will be integrated later on. I loved working on Gwen's familial situation with her and bringing that character into the story in a major way, deciding what his class was, deciding what his motivations were and how he was going to behave around his daughter. It's very exciting. And Alberta playing Gwen, bouncing off of her father and her reactions to him and her reluctance to share anything about her relationship with her father with any of her friends. All of this stuff is absolutely glorious, and I can't wait for you guys to see how it develops. It's super exciting. I adore this character for myself. Just for myself, I adore the character. Yeah, so we have some exciting stuff. We've got Breniel and Edgar Galanis, maybe my favorite NPCs right now, actually. Come to think of it. Fun. Guys, this is a really short episode of Roll Insight. I don't know what else to say, as these episodes are very short, and we have some of these ones that are going to necessarily be developmental rather than packed with revelations or combat. There are going to be fewer and fewer things for me to talk about. I do like to ramble, and I do think there's a lot of D&D stuff to talk about, but I would rather save stuff like Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, talking about the spells and subclasses and things from that, and other projects that we have lined up in the future for their own videos. I think they deserve that much. So What I'm going to leave you with is that yes, this video was late. Hopefully next week will be on time. But the actual episodes 10 of the Mockeries and the Reserve List will be going up as scheduled this week, and episodes 11 are more than fine to go up next week. So the series continues. We've currently filmed up to episodes 14 of each one, I think. So we have it going down the line, and there's some very exciting stuff, including battle mechanics for competing bands, which are going to be introduced soon, not for you guys, but for me and the players, and going to be introducing to some of the more major cities of Garandia. So there are very, very cool. Oh, and not to mention, we're getting close to, in the next few weeks, we're going to be introducing some very fun villains that span all of the Race to the Battle of the Bands series. So that you can look forward to. Some of my favorite creations to date. I cannot wait for you guys to see them. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Like and subscribe. Subscribe is a big one. There's good stuff coming up. Please comment and start a dialogue with us. Every little bit helps. We're more than happy to engage in dialogue with you guys in the comments, and look forward to our next big adventures. Alrighty, take care. Bye.